Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Michele, how does one becomes the leader into helping women getting trained for the boardroom?
Oh, it's a long story.
Go for it. On the podcast, we have time.
I know. Yeah. So the way that I got into it was through my own experience in being in the boardroom. My background's in finance and mining. And for 30 years, I was almost always the only woman in the room. And in 2016, my male mentors, I watched them climb the corporate ladder and get on 3 or 4 boards, retire out. They're making 6 figures, high 6 figures. They are, have stock options. Their families are set, and it's a pretty nice gig if you can get it. So that's where I was headed. And at the same time, there was all this media attention. There aren't enough women on boards. And I was scratching my head like, I don't understand why we're still stuck in this. So I actually took time to interview about 200 women over 18 months. So I sought out women leaders and asked them, why aren't you on a board? And tell me about your background. And that's where I learned that there were a lot of women that I felt had, achieved enough and were qualified to get on boards potentially, but they didn't know how to do it. They didn't know they could get paid. They didn't know the culture in the boardroom. And that sent me on another mission to try and figure out what was out there to help train women for boards. And what I found was Harvard and Kellogg, and their application said, well, if you're the CEO or a C-suite exec of a major company, you can come take our course. And well, that leaves out 99% of us. And I volunteered for a program with our women's chamber, and they paired me with a woman for a year, but there was no curriculum. There was no checking on us. And I thought, oh my God, if this is how we're going to try and help women get on boards, it'll take forever. And I'm a serial entrepreneur, as probably many of your audience are. And I woke up in the middle of the night one night and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I was like, okay, Michele, if you were going to do this, what would it look like? So I got up and I took a legal pad and spent hours writing it out. Like, what's the curriculum? Who's the ideal client? How many, I made a commitment to train 1,000 women, and I launched. I literally 30 days later, for under $500, I built a website and had a brand and my little brochure and set up my first marketing event, and off I went.
Okay, lots of golden nuggets of knowledge in here and story. I love it. So how do you use all this, Michele, to go and solve problems? So first of all, who is it that you're solving problems for right now in your current job?
Oh, well, I'm putting as many women on corporate boards as I possibly can. Okay. So this is like, I started training in 2018. So I've been doing this for 8 years, and I've certified over 200 women in 9 countries. They've filled 133 corporate boards, everything from small startups to Fortune 500. And I am continuing to support women in finding out who they are and if they have the qualifications to get on boards, and then helping them to know how to do it. It isn't just me like introducing them. I teach them how to use their own networks, and teach them elevator pitch, basically board resume, having that whole board package that they can go forward and ask for board seats on their own. And that's what I do. That's what I will continue to do as I go forward. And having said that, I also want to point out that I also am a big proponent of hiring the right person for the board. I'm in, as I said, in finance and mining, and my network has up until I started training women, primarily men, gentlemen. And when we would be at the board table and everyone would say, hey, who do you know? I had, men, I had male names. I know Jim and Bob and Dave who might fit. Now I have Mary and Sue and Ann that I can add to that. So I see this as a really holistic solution to having better boards and better outcomes by more of the diversity there.
Why is that so important to you?
That's a really good question. I was mentored. I'm going to be honest with you. I was mentored by men throughout my career who are wonderful. They really took me by the hand and trained me. They financed me. They brought in business for me. They corrected me when I needed to be corrected. And so I had this very unique opportunity. And one thing that is pretty common, and you'll recognize this, is that as we climb our ladder of success, one of the things that measures our success is how much money we make, how much stuff we have, how many houses we own. Do we have the fancy cars and the boats and the whatever it is, and the trips, right? So what I say is that it's all about me. And once I got my family and myself taken care of in all those departments, because you can only do so much of that, I also recognize that it was really important to give, to thee. So it's not about me, it's about thee. And to make that shift into opening up and sharing everything I learned throughout my career to help other women have that education. And I have to tell you, it's one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done. And it's exciting to be able to help someone to go through a process where I start out with them and they're very unsure, not very confident. And these are like leader women. I mean, they're not wimps, but when it comes to talking about themselves in a certain way, they don't know how to brag and all that kind of thing. And to watch them go from where we start to where we end up, and then to see them land that board position is just thrilling, right? It's a celebration. And it really brings value to all of the decades that I've spent building my own success. So I find a lot of value and fulfillment for myself, selfishly, in being in this position that I can share that with others.
Oh, I love this. And my next question is going to be, so I'm going to put it a certain way. I have two little sisters. Very strong feminists, let's say, and that makes me problem aware of stuff that I didn't even consider could be problems. All the things that women have to go through in today's society, even in the Western society. Now, one of the things that I learned talking to them, and with my first podcast, when we interviewed a super strong female leader in our space, corporate treasury, all of them three, and this is where it clicked for me, mentioned, Guillaume, if you don't see it, you can't believe it, let alone consider it. We were talking about, women in leadership positions and like diversity in the boardroom, but also back in the days within the pool of partner where I was working at PwC. And for me, that wasn't even a problem. For me, it was certain that I was going to become a partner because I was seeing it. I could picture myself becoming a partner. That was just how it was. But like, as a woman, if you don't see women in the board, you don't see women in the partnership, you don't even consider it for yourself at first. So in your marketing, in your branding, Michele, how do you make women problem aware of like, girl, you can be in the boardroom right now, but you're just not, doing the things that it takes because you don't even consider it. So for you don't have to just brand yourself in the sense of I can help you with this. You need to make people problem aware, I suspect. I'm just assuming here. So I'm going to give it back to you now. How do you go about this specific problem?
Exactly. So you hit on something that I've figured out over a period of time, which is that we have a whole gender that has not been mentored into this. So this is a whole new world, which it requires education. So what I do is I actually talk about the statistics, like where we are today. And many times when I go through that, and I also say how much we need more women in the boardroom. For me, the ideal client are women who are leaders, who are brave enough to step up into the boardroom, because we're pioneers. Like, we are in a historic place right now. We've never had this many women in boards before, or CEO roles for that matter. This is like, we're standing in history and we're not even acknowledging it. And to me, that's really important. And as pioneers, and anyone, I don't care what your gender is, anytime you come up with a new idea and you're first, it's tough, because you got to convince people. You've got to help them see what's possible. And then you've got to work really hard to get them to pay you to teach them, so building that trust is super, super hard. And I can tell you that in my experience of, selling, talking to people and attracting people to my courses, that it's a lot. I have to talk to a lot of people. Some people, they do it right away. Other people, I'm not kidding you, 7 years ago. And now they're signing up because they finally believe me. Why? Because they see the results, and I didn't go away. I'm still out there training people, and we post on social media every single week a profile of every one of our graduates. If they get a position as a C-suite, we post it. We celebrate and keep track of the way that these ladies are succeeding. So it's an ongoing thing. And may I just say that this is exactly the kind of process that you go through to get on a board. It takes time to build that trust. And so many of us, like in my case, I was invited to a lot of my boards because the people knew me. They had a long working relationship with me, and they picked me because they trusted me. They knew I'd behave in the boardroom, because that's important. Those gender dynamics can be very, challenging at first. It's not really challenging. It's just uncomfortable, right? Like, everybody's like, oh, you're the first woman in the room, isn't that hard? I'm like, well, what about the guys? The guys have never had a woman in the room to make a decision. They're nervous too. So everybody's a little bit on edge that first time, if if you don't know each other to start out with. And it can take time before those relationships get solid. They trust that, you're not going to run away and tell on them, whatever. I mean, there's just so many things that come into people's minds when we're going into that unknown. And so I tell my ladies, okay, we're ready to go into the boardroom. And let me just say, it's not going to be perfect. Like, you think you're going into the perfect situation, but there can be things that will come up. It won't be fair, because we're still pioneers. So there's going to be stuff that's going to happen, and people will slip and say things because they're still thinking they're in the locker room, kind of thing. And that's okay. You learn to manage all of that. And I'm not suggesting that we would ever be in a position where anyone would be treated inappropriately. But things like cussing and telling jokes and things like that. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off track here, but it is really important for women to understand that there is a learning curve here. It doesn't take long to learn. It's just that there is a learning curve, and that's one thing I stress.
Oh, I like how down to earth you are in your approach, Michele, because we have to play with the cards that we are dealt. And I like the fact that, hey, this is the reality, guys, girls. But this is what we're going to do to play with the cards that we are dealt and still outperform and get in that damn boardroom. I like it a lot. So what has worked for you to get that awareness from women and to get them to take action? And here, so I understand the messaging and the positioning, which I think is the foundation anyways, right?
Yeah.
But now, really getting tactical for B2B coaches and consultants listening to us right now. Yeah. What has worked for you in order to get this attention? Is it content? You said you had 200, you interviewed 200 people. Did you record those interviews and transform it into a podcast? Did you do cold email address? Like, how do you advertise your brand to get people through the door and discuss how you can help them?
Right. That's a really good question. And I think that my model, I know that it worked really well for me. I knew that I needed to speak to a group of people that knew me right off the bat. So when I spent that 30 days developing the website and the brochure, when you go through that process, if you're doing it yourself, I'm not saying contract it out. You contract it out, it's somebody else's voice. When you're sitting there at midnight typing the stuff into the website or typing it into your Vistaprint brochure that you're trying to put together, you have to think about what you're trying to say. What are the words? We didn't have Chat GPT back then, I'm just saying. So it literally had to come from creating what I wanted it to be. And of course, we all want it perfect, but it's not going to be perfect. So what do I do with that? The first thing I did was I organized info sessions, and I secured a room at a restaurant, and I set invitations for $25. The ladies could come. I had a limit. I think we had about 20 that could buy tickets. And I promised them that I would give them a board assessment quiz. So I created a board assessment quiz so they'd have a takeaway. And then I recruited a woman to be with me who was, remember in the beginning, I mentioned that I was a mentor for someone in this other program. And I recruited her to come and actually do a testimonial because she had worked with me for a year. And that's what I did. I launched with that. So I got in front of this group and I talked to them about my goal and what I wanted to do, and that I was going to offer this class, and when I was going to launch it, and send out the board assessment, and it was on paper. So they had to give it back to me. I scored them, went back to my office, scored them, and the next day sent them an email because they had to put their email in order to get their score, and sent them an email and said, here's your score. You are in the top 15%, you'd be a good board candidate. Let's talk. So that was the tactical approach that I took. And I had a pretty broad reach, both in the US and Canada, because I'm in mining and finance. I spent a lot of time on companies' boards in Canada. So I would go to Toronto and do the same thing. I'd get a boardroom from one of my companies. They'd let me use it for free, cater in a meal, $25, come and, listen, and I'd have Q&A and answer all the questions. And eventually I got the first, group of 6 to do my pilot program. So in my pilot program, I held a meeting one night a month for like 4 hours. So that gave me the opportunity to build the curriculum. So month to month, I was able to change it, add to it, bring in guest speakers. I actually filmed a session that we still use today, where I brought in the CEO of a very sizable company who's an advocate for women. It sounds like you are as well. And he, told us kind of the nuts and bolts of what it's like to be the woman in the room, and the things that we do unconsciously that we're not aware of. He gave us amazing tips. Thank God I filmed it, because I use it for every single class. So it's all about gender dynamics in the boardroom. So anyway, that's how I built the curriculum. And then after that, when I launched, I had a very compact program. I wanted to train women in less than 8 weeks because we're all busy. And I started training in the US and Canada. I was all over the place. And they were signing up in droves. And most of it came through referrals. So once I started, then people were telling their friends, oh, I just took this course, or I'm getting certified. I had the first certification for any director in the United States in 2018.
It's pretty solid. So it's mainly based, if I understand properly, Michele, it's mainly based on in-person events, interacting live, and showcasing the value of your program whilst being in the room with those women.
Exactly. And so now, fast forward to post-COVID, those info sessions are online. So a lot of the times I am invited to come speak to women's groups, professional women group, consultant groups, CFOs, whatever. It's that, we all belong to some kind of a trade association. So I've been asked to talk to those groups. And so that's where I do the information and talk to those ladies, and same kind of thing. And then I have fun exercises so they can do the board assessment quiz. I do one on, your preparedness. How prepared are you for networking? Because networking is really important. And we talk about being an introvert versus an extrovert, and how, gentlemen approach networking as part of their job. You know what? The word work is in it. Hello. And guys just add it on. It's like it's an extension of their day. And women don't. You know, when I always went to the stuff that guys went to, mining conferences. In fact, I ran them for years and years. And when you go to the desk where everybody picks up their, you know, their badges, if it's all guys, there's like 3 badges left. They all show up. If it's guys and women, you'll see like the men's badges are gone and half the women's are still there. And if it's an all woman event, you have 40 to 50% that don't come. And so we take a different tack because women have a lot more to do. They're like, okay, I got to go home. I got to make dinner. I got to, you know, I got to go pick this up for so-and-so. I got this and that. And so women don't look at that as an extension of their job. They look at it as another thing to do. And so I talk about the priority of networking when you have an intention.
I like that a lot. How do you, and I guess that you've already alluded to that question, but how do you go from that initial awareness, that initial assessment, that initial contact to actually working with those women and getting them results? Like, what does the sales motion look like for you? And how do you go from problem awareness, solution awareness to SOW, letter of engagement, we rock and roll, and we're going to get you into that boardroom?
Right. So there's different levels. So now I have 3 offerings. In the beginning, I only had 1, but I've expanded, and I filmed 4 modules before COVID, thank God, and put together kind of a basic. It's called my primer. So it's how to do your board resume, board interview, blah, blah. It's all online. You can just sign up for it, take the 4 modules. It's got a workbook, and you kind of get a sense. I tell people, if I meet someone and they're like, I'm not really sure, I'm like, well, this isn't a big investment. If you want to kick the tires and see how I work with people, take my primer. And so I've had like 630 women go through that because they're like, okay, I'm going to just check this out. And then a couple of years ago, I filmed my live certification class. So now you can take the certification class online, which is very serious, 22 modules. We give you 5 months to take it. It comes with a 300-page workbook. I do coaching along with that. So that one is also self-select. Even gentlemen can take these because I can't filter who's signing up and paying. And I've had a couple men take it, by the way. For my live class, different story. You cannot sign up and just pay money. You can apply, but I have to have a one-on-one interview with every single woman. So it's more in-depth process because it's really important. I want them to be successful. I want myself to be successful. And that requires a 20-minute or a 40-minute conversation with women to learn about their background, what their desire is, maybe challenges that they're having, that kind of thing. And I get a pretty good sense of who's going to be a good candidate because they have to work. They can't just like take class and fill in paperwork. It isn't about that. It's a big participation on their side. And so as you can imagine, it's my big price tag. It's my premier offering. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. It doesn't need to be. It needs to be for the right people. Yeah.
And it's also at the level you're gonna put those women in. Like,
right.
Not everybody gets to sit in boardrooms, and once you are, well, this doesn't only mean money. Of course, it means more influence, more knowledge, more networking, more people you can interact with and do further business with. So it needs to be representative of that as well, obviously.
Right.
How
and
do you?
I don't want to take someone's money or waste their time if I don't think that they're going to be qualified either. No. So I don't take everyone, by the way.
Once you get that engagement, Michele, so once you start working with a woman, right? Okay, to put a bit of context for that question, one of the things I learned when I was at PricewaterhouseCoopers, actually it's the partner at the time over there who taught me this. It was like, Guillaume, there are 2 types of consultants. There are the hunters and the farmers. And he was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. That's my jam. And it was like, but the partners who bring in the most money, the ones who grow the fastest, are the farmers, the ones who are able to take that initial engagement, over deliver, and transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year project, feeding other teams. Those are the ones who do the best because this is where the money is. So you're clearly good at hunting. I mean, you've explained us your whole process, interviewing 200 women, going into those rooms where they are to, like, also build your curriculum with them and help them and then onboard them. Once you get that initial engagement, right, and you get that woman into a boardroom, then what? How do you continue to do business with them? How do you keep on bringing value so that you can also keep on, getting value for yourself? How do you retain customers?
This is like the best question ever, because my initial plan, I'm serious. My initial plan is, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know how to do this. I've got all the experience. I'm going to teach them everything I know. I'm going to give them a plan. They're going to have a board brand. And over a period of 8 weeks, I'm going to give them everything they need to know. And they're going to go out into the world and they're going to succeed and get on boards because they have all they need, right? So I trained my first group, remember, over 6 months, this pilot. Now we're in a room together and I'm working really hard on trying to make sure the curriculum's right. I'm asking them for feedback every single time. They become a valuable part of what I'm doing. And then I realized at the end of it, I can't let anybody go, because now I've gotten to know them so well, which is an important thing. Like, I can't recommend someone for a board if I don't know them. I'm not going to do it.
No.
And so that's why I say, if you go through my premium live class, you will be given board opportunities from me, because we have gone through hell and back. It's like boot camp. I'm telling you, I strip them down and build them up. And so what I've done is, because I can't let go of everyone, I've finished 23 cohorts so far.
Okay.
And I am in touch with all of them, maybe not monthly, but on a pretty frequent basis. So I've done things like offer, free speak, experts to come in, do Zoom calls during COVID. We actually created a masterclass. So they were a part of that. They got to come and do that for free. I also engage them when I have board openings. I also send board opportunities to that whole group from time to time and say, look at this list. If you see something that looks close to what you could apply for, go do it. You know what to do, take advantage. And we had an annual summit. So I would put together a summit and invite every graduate to come to Denver for 2 days. And I organized like guest speakers and networking and, dinners, and we had a ball. So that's what I've done in order to maintain that group. So you're probably going, okay, now what? I'm going to stop teaching next year. I have 2 more live classes. So I'm going to do 24 and 25 and I'm done. Why? Because when I add up all my numbers of the 3 offerings, I'm at 920. I'm going to check that box. I'm going to hit 1,000. So I'm going to curate that group that I've worked so hard to attain. And I'm launching what I call Board World, which will be a membership platform. It's going to offer workshops, monthly coaching, mastermind group, and a retreat. I'm moving into curation of the group of women that I've trained over the last 8 years. And we are going to go make some money and take names. Let's just say that.
Looking forward to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited.
Michele, I'm of the school of thought, if there is such a thing, that volumes neglects luck. Meaning, when you do so much volume, it becomes unreasonable to not succeed. You know that you're achieving something. The 200 interviews thing is so powerful for me. The 3 offerings, the number of women that you're helping is great. You've been doing this for a while now. Clearly, you know how to steer your boat. Let me ask you a bit of a curveball. Where would you say you feel stuck right now? What is challenging you? The reason I'm asking this is we have B2B coaches and consultants listening to us right now who might feel stuck at the exact same level. I think it's always great to hear from your peers how they think about solving the problem that you're faced with right now. So for you, what would that be?
This is a really important question. As an entrepreneur, I'm very upbeat, and because I found a need to fill and it worked, it's like heaven.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going all in. As I mentioned before, I'm almost to my 1,000, and as the way that I'm built is when I set a bodacious goal, and when I get to it, I have a check the box and what's next.
Yeah.
So I got stuck earlier this year. And that's where I was stuck, was like, I know myself. I know I'm going to get bored. I know I want out, but I can't talk to anybody about that because I can't destroy what I've built. I don't want them to know that I want out. Like this is not good. And what am I going to do? Right. And do I try and sell it? Do I try and franchise it? I'm going through all those questions, and I am asking, obviously, some of my close, colleagues, what do you recommend? What do you recommend? Blah, blah, blah. They're all giving me these different ideas. And eventually, I came to this solution of, wait a second, I've got 1,000 women. I've got a gold mine here. How can I help them sustain this and still be excited myself? So the stuckness was within me and my motivation. And you know what I did? I put together a video and I sent it to all my graduates. This was only a month ago. And I basically called the thing a thing. I have some personal stuff going on. My husband has Alzheimer's. So I'm also dealing with being a caregiver. And I know that my personal life is going to change going forward. And I want to have some flexibility to be able to spend more time with him and things like that. I just laid it all out. I put it in the video and I said, please watch this. And if you have ideas, you want to touch base with me, please reach out. So dozens of my graduates set up Zoom meetings with me over the last few weeks. And I had one of them right away. I'll lead the community. I have an idea. Let's do a platform. I'll put it together and let's do a membership. And we came up with this whole plan that I just told you about for Board World. So that's what I ended up doing. And I feel very unstuck right now and very motivated and very excited for this next phase. And I think the hardest part was getting to the point where I was courageous enough to share my weaknesses, if you will, my fears with all these women that I've taken into my confidence and that they have taken me into their confidence over the years, and threw it out there to see what would happen.
Michele, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. If people want to find out more about you, what you do, and what you're up to, where should they go?
My website actually is acellc.consulting, which I know sounds weird because you can find me on LinkedIn.
Great SEO.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as well under my name, Michele with one L, please. And I don't know if you provide my contact information or not, but
we will absolutely put all the links in the description. One thing I can say for sure is that you've gained at least one connection from this interview. Me, I just added you on LinkedIn. Michele, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Guillaume, thank you so much for having me. I just enjoy this so much, and I hope that I was able to share some things that might be helpful to others.
It most certainly was, at least for me. So I'm sure the audience will love it. Thank you so much, Michele.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time. How was that, Michele?